Content warning. This video contains images of insects, specifically moths, and are intended to be frightening. If you have a fear of moths, or insects in general, please proceed with caution or skip this video altogether. You have been warned. Today's reading is Deathmoths from the Backrooms Wiki. Habitat, multi-level, and migratory. Properties, insectoid, hive mind, and aggressive. Introduction. Entity 4, colloquially known as Deathmoths, is a species of chimeric moths endemic to the Backrooms. These entities possess the characteristics of dozens of species of moths, insects, and other organisms, with new physical deviations being developed over time. In addition to biological distinctions, Deathmoths have a complex and unique life cycle not found in any other known entity. The non-larval members of the species are separated into 3 unique castes: the common death moth, the Praetorian death moth, and the Empress death moth. Analysis. Central nest. Deathmoth nests are large, semi-organic structures that serve as both a hive and an incubator for the colony. Constructed primarily from digested biological matter, plant fibers, and secreted resin, the nests maintain a human interior ideal for pre-pupal growth. Using pre-existing architecture as a base, the colony will add layers of organic matter approximately 60 to 100 centimeters thick. It is common for deathmoths to construct columns out of indigestible remains and coat them in the same semi-organic material. The deathmoth's natural resin has a preservative compound that prevents rot from forming within the central hive. Colonies of sufficient size that occupy expansive levels have been observed constructing smaller auxiliary nests at great distances from the central hive. These satellite structures serve as outposts for incubation, resource storage, and limited habitation. This allows the colony to extend its influence across vast areas without overburdening the primary nest. Deathmoth eggs. Deathmoths are oviparous insectoids laying anywhere from 12 to 700 eggs at a time. Both the common and Empress deathmoths use a retractable ovipositor located at the tip of their abdomen to attach their eggs to the lining of the central nest. Fertilization process. Female common deathmoths will use the nest's fleshy upper layer to form an incubation pouch, usually in the crevices and corners of walls or ceilings. The mothers use their ovipositors to implant several dozen eggs into the sac. The eggs will later be fertilized by male common deathmoths. After several days, once the incubation sac is consumed, the mothers will relocate them to the center of the hive. Physical description. The deathmoth eggs are at a similar size to mundane moths, around 3 to 5 millimeters, but grow significantly during the incubation process. They will absorb the nutrients from their sac and rapidly grow over the course of several days, eventually reaching a size of approximately 3 to 5 centimeters and will be stacked in columns by the mothers. Larval deathmoths. Deathmoth larvae are voracious and quite dangerous despite their relative size. They remain in the state from the time they hatch until they have stored enough energy for metamorphosis. This process usually takes about 3 weeks. Physical description. Larval deathmoths average 5 to 10 centimeters in length, with a diameter of 4 centimeters, and their upper carapaces are covered in hollow quills measuring 7 centimeters. These quills secrete a paralytic toxin, making predation of the otherwise defenseless larvae rather difficult. They possess sharp serrated mandibles, used to easily consume flesh and plant matter. Due to a lack of wings, the larvae ambulate using a dozen segmented legs. Behavior. In order to store enough energy for metamorphosis, the larval deathmoths will continuously consume the upper layer of the central hive, only breaking for 10-minute microsleep cycles. When threatened, the larvae will curl themselves into a spherical shape, fully exposing their quills for protection. During metamorphosis, the larval deathmoths will burrow into organic walls of the central hive and will remain in there for approximately 20 days before emerging as fully grown deathmoths. Common death moth. The common death moth is the most populous caste of the species, accounting for roughly 80% of the total Entity 4 population. Physical description. All common death moths share several features, including 2 pairs of membranous wings covered in scales and microscopic fibers, 2 compound eyes and 2 ocelli, a pair of feathered antennae, and 6 segmented legs ending in clawed tarsi. Males are smaller, with wingspans of 30 to 35 centimeters and bodies 40 to 50 millimeters long. They have highly developed sensory antennae that are used for long-range colony communication. During pupation, their mandibles become vestigial, placed with a long needle-like proboscis adapted for piercing and draining liquids. Females are larger, with wingspans of 40 to 45 centimeters and bodies 60 to 70 millimeters long, bearing a thicker thorax and abdomen. Instead of a proboscis, they retain extended mandibles and reinforced pitchers suited for rending flesh. They also possess a specialized organ that produces a caustic fluid, used defensively and in the process of organic matter for nests and incubation sacs. Behavior. Males are typically docile scavengers, feeding on any liquid that can sustain them, including almond water and other supplies. They lack effective predatory tools and generally consume only dead or dying prey. Though fairly harmless on their own, a swarm can desiccate an incapacitated human in 1 to 2 hours. The male death moths are commonly found at great distances from the central hive, conducting reconnaissance and relaying new information from the outer reaches of their territory. The male's relatively passive nature makes them the most easily domesticated variety. Females, by contrast, are aggressive and become increasingly hostile closer to hive centers. They primarily hunt using swarm tactics. Groups of death moths coordinate to strip flesh from exposed areas, typically resulting in fatal blood loss. After successfully incapacitating a target, the swarm will reduce it into a gelatinous mass using caustic ejecta, which is then shaped into spheres and carried back to the hive. Both plant matter and animal remains are gathered this way, with skeletal remains often being found around hive sites. When stressed, females release pheromones that rally nearby males, other females, and praetorians to their aid. Praetorian death moth. The Praetorian death moth is by far the most formidable and aggressive variant of Entity 4. Though only consisting of approximately 15% of the total Entity 4 population, at least one is present within every colony. Due to their disposition and the danger they present, it is recommended to avoid Praetorian death moths whenever possible. Physical description. The Praetorian death moth is the second largest Entity 4 variation. They're nearly a meter tall and have bodies measuring between 15 and 20 centimeters in diameter, with a wingspan of approximately 60 centimeters. They are semi-simultaneous hermaphrodites, having functioning male genitalia, vestigial female genitalia, and other traits of the female common death moth. The most apparent physical deviation found in Praetorians is their 8 legs that measure 70 to 75 centimeters. These legs are segmented and possess internal organs that secrete a potent paralytic toxin that is used for predation and self-defense. The Praetorians' wings are semi-vestigial, only used for the propagation of concentrated pheromones, which can spread up to 5 kilometers away. Behavior. Praetorian death moths are agile and will swiftly attack anything they perceive to be a threat. Using their appendages, they will generally strike at vulnerable areas to weaken or incapacitate their prey, and have also been observed employing corrosive ejecta to further immobilize or damage targets. Once immobilized, the Praetorian will use several appendages to dismember the prey and relocate the remains to the central hive. The hive's populations are found congregating around Empress death moths and escorting them during their migration. After a permanent nest is established, 1 or more Praetorians will remain to protect the colony. Empress death moths are the only variation capable of laying Praetorian death moth eggs. Empress death moth. The Empress death moth is the most important case in relation to the propagation of the species. Due to the inherent danger of interacting with an empress, information regarding their internal biology and behavior is limited. Physical description. Empresses measure approximately 75 centimeters in height and have a body length of approximately 1.5 meters, significantly larger than the other Entity 4 castes, with a total wingspan of nearly 3 meters. An empress is capable of spreading pheromones between 15 and 25 kilometers away. Despite the size of their wings, they are only capable of short bursts of flight due to their weight. Empresses have the longest antennae of the species, and, in conjugation with their pheromones, they are capable of controlling entire colonies from a centralized location. The Empress death moths have elongated bodies, the lower half consisting of a large internal incubation chamber, allowing them to lay hundreds of death moth eggs at a time. Behavior. The Empress death moths travel between levels, establishing new colonies along their migration path. They are always accompanied by a harem consisting of dozens of Praetorian death moths, with whom they will engage in maternal polyandry. When threatened, the Empress death moths can cause a frenzied state that causes erratic and highly aggressive behavior in all exposed death moths. Empress death moths typically do not interact or occupy the same level with another member of their caste. It is theorized that the presence of multiple matriarchs causes confusion amongst the colonies, and for this reason the empresses are instinctually territorial. Research into the mechanism by which new Empress death moths are created is currently ongoing. Migratory colonies. When an Empress death moth enters a level, its accompanying colony will immediately begin searching for a central nest location, typically rooms or corridors with limited access points and multiple light sources. The colony will begin to construct a nest around the Empress death moth once a suitable location is discovered. The Empress itself will enter a gestation period, lasting several weeks. Meanwhile, in preparation for the new larvae, the colony will systematically assimilate biological matter found within the level. After gestation is complete, the Empress will lay hundreds of eggs, including several dozen Praetorians, before repeating the process. This will occur for several cycles before the Empress death moth signals the colony to begin migration. The Empress colony will then vacate the level, leaving the new colony to fend for itself. It is extremely rare for migratory colonies to travel through the same level twice, leading to many hypotheses regarding generational memory, cross-colony communication, and the intelligence of the species as a whole. There are currently 13 known migratory colonies. Survival Guide. Deathmoths can pose varying levels of danger ranging from minor annoyances to lethality, or in extreme circumstances, the complete disruption of a level's ecosystem. When dealing with Entity 4, always remember the Swarms Protocol. S. Survival over engagement. Whenever possible, avoiding contact with Deathmoths is always the best course of action. Only engage when escape is unavoidable, keep the interaction short, and flee the area promptly after. W. Watch for hives. Hives are extremely dangerous, and inadvertently wandering into one can prove lethal. Look for fleshy protrusions covering doorways and avoid clusters of female common Deathmoths. A. Avoid bright lights. Bright lights can attract Deathmoths. If you know Deathmoths are nearby, extinguish or dim your lights, and avoid well-lit areas. R. Remain calm. Swarm attacks can be very disorienting. Keep your composure and follow a plan. If you're traveling in a group, discuss Deathmoth encounters in advance. M. Mark territory. Signage warning of Deathmoth activity can save lives. If none is present, makeshift warnings can be just as effective. S. Stay informed. Colonies can spread across entire levels. If you're a part of a group, it's important to stay in communication on Deathmoth activity to avoid complications. Relay new Deathmoth sightings to the appropriate groups or outposts in the area. This video has been ceased by the Unbound. Unbound by fear, united by bravery. Entity 4, Deathmoths. After Action Report. Operation Queenfall. Location? Classified. Units involved: Homeland Defense Force and Research Team Hera. Outcome: ambiguous. Situation synopsis: 2 weeks prior to the mission, an Empress Deathmoth entered level in an assumed attempt to colonize the level. Accompanying the Empress was an estimated 32 Praetorians and several hundred common Deathmoths. Fearing the worst for base, the HDF immediately began formulating a plan for eliminating the Empress and exterminating the colony. Proposed action: the Homeland Defense Force requests the use of 6 operatives familiar with level. Along with the standard equipment, the team has requested 1 MK5 pyro thrower, 2 stun batons, and 6 canisters of Deathmoth repellent. A 3-man team will reach the Deathmoth nest during its construction, using the repellent and conventional weapons to clear a path. Using the pyro thrower, the unit will ignite the Empress and burn the fledgling colony. The second team will erect a camera and collect samples for research purposes. Research Team Hera has requested the extraction of a live Praetorian Deathmoth. Using stun batons, the second team will incapacitate and bag the entity. Both teams will then exfile to base. Proposition approved. Operation Summary. The following timeline was compiled through audio and video logs, as well as first-hand testimony. Queenfall Mission Log. 1342. Team 1 enters the northern corridor, leading to the nest. They report a heavy presence of common Deathmoths. 1344. Team 2 comes with the Deathmoths in the southern corridor are withdrawing towards the nest. 1346. Both teams continue down their respective hallways. 1349. Team 1 makes visual contact with the nest. Female Deathmoths begin to swoop towards the team, testing their defenses. One of the operatives uses a standard pike to spear one of the aggressors. 1350. 2 Praetorian Deathmoths enter the northern hallway. The 2 support units take defensive positions in front of the pyro thrower operator. 1 Praetorian approaches on the left wall, and the other on the ground. A swarm of male Deathmoths blocks the team's visibility. 1351. Team 2 makes visual contact with the nest. 10 Praetorians can be seen surrounding the Empress. The remaining 19 are scattered across the walls and ceiling. Hundreds of common Deathmoths are swarming above a large egg cluster. The team takes cover behind the threshold of the room, fearing an ambush from the Deathmoths. 1352. Team 1 successfully kills the first Praetorian, but fails to notice the wall-bound moth. The man on the left reacts at the last moment and braces. He is pierced through his right arm by the Praetorian's clawed appendage. As he stumbles forward, the entity pierces his back, skewering him. 1352. The remaining support operative releases 2 canisters of Deathmoth repellent. The pyro thrower operator fires a single burst of pyroil, igniting the canisters and causing an explosion. Both operatives equip gas masks as a wave of Deathmoth repellent fills the hallway in both directions. During the commotion, Team 1 does not hear the communication from base. Warning of an incoming swarm approaching from their rear. 1353. Team 2 notices a shift in Praetorian activity towards the northern corridor's entrance. They use this opportunity to enter the nest. 2 operatives begin to take samples, as the third attaches the camera unit to the wall. 1354. The northern entrance, now fully blocked by Praetorians, erupts into flames, killing several of the moths and sending the rest into a frenzied state. Team 1 releases the remaining 3 canisters of Deathmoth propellant into the nest. A single Praetorian notices Team 2's presence and prepares to attack. The team begins a tactile retreat, leading the single Praetorian out of the nest. 1355. A second explosion resonates as the repellent canisters ignite, killing the Empress and several Praetorians. The colony erupts into chaos. 8 of the Praetorians swarm the smoldering remains of the Empress and begin consuming it. 1356. The frantic swarms of common death moths obstruct the camera's view. Team 1 retreats down the northern corridor as Team 2 prepares to engage the now erratic Praetorian that is pursuing them in the southern hall. 1358. Team 2 halts their retreat. 2 of the operatives attack the Praetorian using their stun batons, and the third sprays the repellent on the death moth to further disorient it. Once it is fully incapacitated, they carefully fold its legs and place it in a large black canvas bag. 1359. Team 1 turns a corner in the hallway. They come face to face with the rogue Praetorian and its swarm. The pyro thrower operator attempts to fire his weapon, but it jams. The Praetorian lunges onto the operator, skewering his arms and legs. The moth then spews caustic fluid onto his gas mask, causing it to melt onto his face, muffling his screams. The remaining man violently swats his way through the swarm and runs away from the scene. 1412. Team 2 arrives at base with the unconscious Praetorian. 1419. The sole survivor of Team 1 arrives at base. The captured Praetorian was stored within an unused office room within base, and the surviving agents were sent for medical evaluation. Deathmoth activity in the level remained in an erratic state. Mission successful. Results. Following the elimination of the Empress, the colony acted in an unpredictable way. Within the nest, 8 of the Praetorian Deathmoths returned to their pupal stage and created cocoons for themselves with the corpse of the Empress Deathmoth. Instead of halting destruction for the nest, as predicted, the colony instead hastened their efforts. After several days, the camera placed within the nest was covered by the organic regurgitation. 2 separate recon teams were met with the catastrophic complications when attempting to re-establish visuals on the nest. Following an incident involving a supply caravan bound for base, the situation was deemed dire enough to warrant the evacuation of all non-essential personnel. Custody of the captured Praetorian was relinquished to Research Team Hera on level. Status update. 3 months following Operation Queenfall, our organization has lost complete control of the level. The former Praetorians emerged from their cocoons as empresses and almost immediately plunged the colony into an internal conflict. 4 of the newly formed empresses fled the level and have been confirmed to be following their own migratory paths. The remaining 4 empresses formed 3 additional nests within level, creating hundreds of Praetorians and thousands of common death moths. Level has been designated a biological dead zone, and attempts to limit the egress of the level are currently underway. Executive Order. Due to the unmitigated disaster caused by Operation Queenfall, all missions involving any aggression towards Empress Death Moths and their migratory colonies are hereby forbidden. We have inadvertently caused irreparable damage to level and created several new migratory colonies, putting an untold number of additional levels in danger. New protocols involving the elimination of Deathmoth colonies will only be carried out once an Empress has left the level. May our sight never dim. C. McNamara, Grand Marshal of the Homeland Defense Force. This article is written by DrAkimoto from the Backrooms Wiki.